and the leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress of Nigeria are calling on the federal government to take immediate action to reverse the current price of fuel. NLC and TUC describe the current price hike as unnecessary, crippling and pain-inducing to Nigerians. The groups also blamed the petrol shortage on players in the downstream sector who they say are responsible for hiking the price far above the government-approved threshold. I was wondering.
Okay, we've now been joined in the studio here by a RISE analyst, Frank Tietie. He's also a human rights lawyer. Very warm welcome, Frank. We've seen quite a number of judicial issues. But first with the NJC, 15 judges, the hunter becoming the hunted in this matter. And they're going to have judicial or probe panels, you know, for gross misconduct, they said. No specific charges before them.
Oh, well, it's not so new. It's not so new. It's just that this becomes a confidence building measure to make this kind of announcement. The judiciary is not immune, it's not excused from the rots and decay that we have in the society. The judges are put in a position where they can be easily tempted to corrupt and abuse the immense powers that they carry, especially by political office holders. So it's not really something that is out of the ordinary. It's quite common. But the National Judicial Council this time around is making this announcement, whereas it has been its policy to be quite discreet when reports of misconduct are actually made against judicial officers. And it is in the public interest when you keep such things a bit quiet, because the moment you start debating, mentioning names of judicial officers who have been accused allegedly of collecting bribes, especially from politicians, because the thing is this: judicial officers, their welfare is not very very impressive, and then they preside over cases that run into billions, and then they decide cases that have to give political power to people, and then this person is having so much money to be able to reach them to say, just exercise your discretion by looking the other way, forget this evidence, and then don't admit this evidence, or make the decision in a different context. And so it's difficult for them to actually live above board without all of these protective measures against them. So the National Judicial Council is actually making this statement to allay the fears of Nigerians.
Louder than it used to.
Yes, it usually would, and I wonder why exactly. I mean, and like you said, I mean, the judiciary or the judges, like Caesar's wife, are expected to be above board. I recall reading a book in secondary school, The Incorruptible Judge. Very, very interesting. Now, when you talk about misconduct within the judiciary, what exactly are we even talking about? What is the extent or the scope of misconduct? Is it just corruption you're talking about?
Well, even if it's corruption, it's quite wide. It's beyond bribe taking. It also has to do with exercise of discretion in such a manner that it gives it shows that the judge has a personal interest in that case. Refusing, for example, to take clear-cut evidence that have been made in court just because the judge has a personal bias for and against any particular litigant or party can amount to misconduct. So any form of way that the judge carries himself, for example, accepting money from friends when such friends, whether in good faith, like it's often done in cases of burials, when you have to help your friend, your secondary or university classmate who has now become a judge, such kind of collection of monies and all that, however innocuous they may be, can also be considered as matters of inducement and indiscretion on the part of the judge. It's difficult to define what.
But how really bad is the situation? Because we keep hearing corruption in the judiciary.
Let's get it clear. When you hear the large amount of corruption in judiciary, it doesn't have to do with the judicial officers, with the presiding officers of the court. That's what we're talking about, the judges. You know, it's more about the processing officers of the courts. That is the bailiff, the people, the commissioners of oaths, and those in the process unit. Yes, so we often have to collect money for what government has already subsidized in filings, in service, and all of that. So you pay extra money each time you go and post an affidavit,
is it not
which
because,
ought not to be. So that's corruption.
Is it not because litigants want expedited action? They go behind the scene to do that. So they are corrupt too, aren't they?
Of course, yes. No, but you see, it's a social problem. It's systemic. It's a reflection of our values.
Right.
You know, so when you say the Nigerian police, according to perception indices of the past, that Nigerian police is the most corrupt, followed by the judiciary, it is not the judicial officers that are said to be carrying out those corrupt practices. However, if judicial officers give decisions that are manifestly influenced by one factor or the other, they can be indicted and then complained against before the National Judicial Council.
Let's talk about the point made by the respected cleric Husani, who more or less made a point as to what exactly is the use of a judgment if it would not be enforced? Why do the courts seem helpless in enforcing, pronouncements or judgments?
And he talks about
especially when it comes to, the rich versus
the poor.
There's something that is quite unspoken, and the fact is the weakness of the Nigerian courts system. They're quite weak. For example, it's laughable to say a court is giving an order that is sending the Inspector General of Police to prison. It's quite laughable. The judges have always known that.
The Supreme Court does not see it that way. If you remember the Supreme Court's decision on such a situation is that, you understand, the judge is not going to ask the police to arrest the Inspector General of the police.
Yes.
But there is a moral obligation and legal obligation. If you put down or you don't effect the judge's decision, it is the entire judicial system
I think it goes beyond that. I think it's about destroying the very foundation of the country. If you rest the country on the basis or the foundation of law, then do everything possible, especially by the institutions, to create that impression. So the courts, as a practitioner, I have noticed that courts in the last 20 years have been quite reluctant to make pronouncements with regards to government officials, and particularly law enforcement officials who have been working in breach of court orders. They know secretly that they don't want to upstage the system, because these are the persons they rely on when it fits the situation to enforce the law. And when it does not fit the situation to enforce the law, they keep quiet. But so what we have now, it's a very encouraging situation that we now have federal high courts making pronouncements for whatever it is.
Well, is it just for the optics?
Not necessarily, because ideally, if the status quo was to be maintained, the Inspector General of Police would have just kept quiet and would have just called it bluff, because in the case of the EFCC is different, because the EFCC had taken actual steps to comply.
But the EFCC chairman came out to say that, you understand? So bowing to the law
the beauty of it is that the realization is now dawning on the ordinary policeman in the faraway formation in the local government to say that, it is no longer business as usual, that even IG can be indicted by the court. No, it's not a good record for any Inspector General of Police that it is in his time a certain judge that he is meant to protect, a certain judge that should rely on him for the enforcement of the law is now indicting him, making a pronouncement that he should be sent to prison. And then the legal department of the police force will now be running helter-skelter to see, how do we address this? This is embarrassing, because the press will just go about it. And then what happens? People will ask questions. They say, our laws meant to be pronounced, not to be obeyed. So the Inspector General of Police is on the right course when he says, we will address this. Even though it is not in his time, even though the circumstances do not warrant, indeed, to be fair to him, they don't warrant that the pronouncement that should be sent to prison. But let us look at the matter so that it doesn't become too dramatic. It is the sheriff of the police, the sheriff of the court, that enforces the order of the court, relies on the policeman, particularly the Inspector General of Police, to go and arrest. So which policeman would and say, IG, I have order of court now, so I'm arresting you. It's not
well,
possible.
like they say, if you ask me now, who I go ask?
So that's why Husani is talking about equal rights and justice.
And justice
I know
for everyone.
you, as a reggae lover too, you still remember some of those lyrics and but let's quickly look at.
To wrap it.
Oh. Frank, well, I know you got so much to say and the rest, but let's say thank you very much. Frank Tietie, Arise analyst.